Hi, welcome to Linda's TV show. If it is your first time, you like the channel, you like the program, subscribe and put on your notification bell because it's gonna help you to know when I upload a new video. Like you all may know, I present information across the globe, especially in Nigeria to be precise, and I want to appreciate my viewers, my subscribers. You guys are so amazing, especially those who always tune in to watch me each time I upload a new video. It's not easy for you to leave what you are doing to watch my videos, especially those of my friends who hit me with harsh comment. I am not against anybody. I'm just a journalist. I'm presenting to you what is happening in the whole world. So if you think that the video or my title is not good, tell me. I am a human being. I have conscience and reasoning, and I read your comment. I'm going to make amend, okay, my wonderful people? So I open up a new YouTube channel where I talk about life in Germany. If you want to come to Germany to study, to live, to relocate, to work, follow that link. I'm going to put the link down below. Click on it. It will take you there. If you want to chat to me one-on-one, or maybe you want to get enough clarification, please contact me on IG with the name Chukwuezi Tochi.
To order. Today's hearing, I would like to thank, first of all, at the outset, our witnesses for sharing their expertise and views. What I believe is a very, very important and timely hearing following a week in which the U.S. Department of State designated Nigeria a country of particular concern, or CPC country, and also when the chief prosecutor for the International Criminal Court, Fatou Bensouda, announced that a well-founded basis exists for investigating Nigeria for crimes against humanity and war crimes, including investigating both terror organizations such as Boko Haram and the Nigerian security forces. I would note that the focus that the Lantos Commission has had over the years with numerous hearings and briefings on Nigeria, and that I have had as past chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Africa, Global Health, Global Human Rights. I now serve as its ranking member and co-chairman of this commission. We have focused on Nigeria for a very, very long time, and many of us have traveled there, met with survivors of the Chibok girls' abduction, some family members as well as some of the young women, and have pressed the case of human rights, especially as it relates to terror organizations, for many years. And there's been both sides of the aisle have been very focused on this, as it ought to be, and the executive branch. The United States and the international community, I believe, must do more to mitigate the violence because, above all, the dire situation on the ground warrants it. The killings, the kidnappings, and sexual abuse is absolutely unconscionable. We should do more because the people of Nigeria deserve to live in peace and freedom with their fundamental human rights guaranteed and protected, and because Nigeria is the largest country in Africa, and what happens there has an outsized impact on West Africa and in Africa as a whole. Nigeria is so large, its population is forecast by some to reach over 400 million by 2050, overtaking the United States as the world's third most populous country. And its economic and political leadership in sub-Saharan Africa is so impactful that we simply cannot ignore it. A stable and prosperous Nigeria contributes to stable and prosperous neighbors. Conversely, an unstable Nigeria, racked by poverty and violence, does not contribute to the well-being of its neighbors, but rather can lead to their destabilization in turn. I shared a hearing on Nigeria almost 2 years ago to this day, noting that Nigeria was at a crossroads at that time. Today we see escalating violence along ethnic and religious lines, exacerbated by economic, social, and political tensions. It is getting worse. Among the 7 Nigerian hearings that I previously chaired were a series of hearings that with respect to the designation of Boko Haram as a foreign terrorist organization, or FTO, along with the bipartisan bill which I introduced, HR 3209, that would have called for that designation. While it may sound surprising to some today, for the historical record, it must be stated that the designation of Boko Haram as a foreign terrorist organization was strenuously opposed by the State Department at that time, then led by Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Assistant Secretary for Africa Johnny Carson. At one of my hearings in 2012, July 10th to be exact, I asked the Secretary why the Obama administration refused to designate Boko Haram as an FTO, foreign terrorist organization, and he said, quote, "It's an important question. We have indeed designated 3 individuals who we think are in top leadership positions to that list, but we have not designated the entire organization because we do not believe that Boko Haram is a homogeneous organization. We believe that the larger element of Boko Haram is not interested in doing anything but attempting to disgrace the Nigerian government." The refusal to designate Boko Haram an FTO went on for about 3 years. This, however, changed when John Kerry became Secretary of State and Linda Thomas Greenfield became the Assistant Secretary for Africa. In fact, it was at a November 2013 hearing that I chaired that Linda Thomas Greenfield publicly announced that Boko Haram would be designated a foreign terrorist organization. It was right before we were going to mark up the bill. So today, thankfully, there is a widespread recognition that Boko Haram, along with its breakaway and perhaps now more powerful faction, the Islamic State West Africa, is clearly a terror threat. But today's hearing will address a related but not as clearly understood phenomenon, which is the violence, mass killings, and atrocities in the middle belt of Nigeria that is a correlate to the violence perpetrated by Boko Haram and others. These acts of horrific violence, which we will hear testimony about, are committed in large part by Fulani militants. And I want to underscore that it's important that we do name those responsible for the violence, that its ethno-religious component, because there has been a lot of moral equivocation on this point, including by the State Department. Yet the situation has some degree of complexity. Yes, there are tensions between farmers and pastoralists exacerbated by climate change. There are counter reprisals committed against members of the Fulani community, although they are relatively rare, including those who are innocent of any wrongdoing. But that does not negate the fact that the largest dominant driver of conflict in the Middle Belt region is committed by Fulani extremists who appear driven in large part by ethno-religious chauvinism against mostly Christian farmers, though I do note that there are elsewhere Shia Muslims who are also victims, and that intra-Sunni conflicts also exist within the Muslim community as well. Nigerian Bishop William Avenya will testify today that, and I quote in part, "The mass slaughter of Christians in Nigeria's Middle Belt, by every standard, meets the criteria for a calculated genocide from the definition of the Genocide Convention." And yet he notes, and I quote him again, "No one has ever been arrested or questioned or prosecuted or convicted of any charge related to this spree of killings which has been going on for at least 5 years." In its November 18, 2020 report to the International Criminal Court, the Jubilee campaign writes, and I quote in pertinent part, "Violence that has taken place in Nigeria's Middle Belt is spiraling out of control, costing the lives of thousands of civilians and destabilizing the country and region. The violence is often characterized as a, quote, intercommunal conflict between herders and farmers over natural resources. However, the well-worn label is now obsolete due to the increasing asymmetry in attacks, as well as the steadily increasing frequency and organizational planning of Fulani militant attacks against civilian targets. It's worth noting that what separates this situation from that of Boko Haram and the Islamic State, West Africa, is the fact that the Nigerian government under President Buhari is dominated by the Fulani. This is true of the military and the state security forces, but increasingly other institutions of power as well, including the Supreme Court of Nigeria, where Buhari engineered the ouster of Chief Justice Walter Onengan. We have also seen the sidelining of members of the Fulani community who have demonstrated a commitment to peace, including the ouster of the Emir of Kano in March of this year, at a time when the COVID epidemic was becoming the focus of our attention and all eyes were off that situation. While there is now a consensus that Boko Haram is engaged in terrorism, that consensus breaks down when the issue of Fulani extremism comes up, a topic I hope we will explore today and gain a better understanding of. I'm also concerned about the apparent inability, or perhaps even reluctance, of the Nigerian federal government under President Buhari to stop the violence in the Middle Belt, or even at times to unequivocally condemn the attacks. As I have said before, it's critically important that Fulani political leaders such as President Buhari, Fulani leaders, religious leaders such as the Sultan of Sokoto, and Fulani institutions such as the Cattlemen's Association, all of whom have authority and influence among the Fulani militants, unequivocally condemn these attacks and use their power and influence to promote peace and to promote reconciliation. It is not sufficient that such condemnation be issued in English as well. Rather, they must be articulated in Hausa and Fulfulde. Again, I want to thank my colleagues who will be joining us today, and I would like to yield. We do have some members who are here and some who are here virtually who might want to make opening comments. So, Mr. McGovern, Co-Chair McGovern, are you?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. And I join my colleague and co-chair Chris Smith in welcoming the witnesses and the public to this Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission hearing on the deteriorating human rights situation in Nigeria with a focus on the Middle Belt. I understand that there are other members of the commission who will be joining us or who may submit written statements for the record. I appreciate their participation and I look forward to what they will have to say. Ambassador Brownback, it's good to see you again, and I'll take this opportunity to thank you for your work as Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom. I know that you have spoken out on behalf of members of many faiths, including Uyghur and other Turkic Muslims and Tibetan Buddhists in China and Rohingya Muslims in Burma. As a practicing Catholic, I benefit greatly from the freedom of religion that we have historically enjoyed here in the United States. I am also deeply aware that unless and until freedom of belief is guaranteed for everyone on an equal basis, whatever their faith tradition, it is not truly guaranteed for anyone. So I appreciate your work. Nigeria is important. It is Africa's most populous country and its largest economy, an influential regional political actor and a top trading partner, recipient of foreign investment and beneficiary of U.S. foreign assistance. Nigerians make up the largest African-born population in the United States. Nigeria is also facing very serious and long-standing human rights challenges with characteristics and dynamics that vary by region. In the Northeast, conflict between the military and U.S. designated foreign terrorist organizations, Boko Haram and the Islamic State West Africa province, has killed tens of thousands over the past decade, displaced millions, and caused a protracted humanitarian crisis. Most members of Congress are familiar with Boko Haram's abduction of 276 girls from Chibok in 2014, and ISWAP's abduction of 110 girls from Dapchi in 2018. Although Muslim communities in northeast Nigeria have borne the brunt of the violence of these two groups, the victims of the Chibok and Dapchi were Christians. In Nigeria's northwest, conflict between pastoralists and farmers has escalated as part of a broader deterioration in security conditions involving cattle rustling, kidnapping, ethnic massacres, and emergent Islamic extremist activities. Just last week, more than 500 schoolboys, apparently mostly Muslim, were abducted from a boarding school in Katsina State in the northwest. A day later, Boko Haram, whose name means Western education is forbidden, issued a video claiming responsibility for the abduction. According to news reports, 333 boys are still missing. Farmer-herder violence also has surged in the central Middle Belt, an ethnically and religiously diverse region where disputes over access to resources coincide with cleavages between Christian and Muslim communities. This region is the focus of the hearing today. I want to be clear that the violence unfolding throughout Nigeria is a tragedy. No violent death is acceptable. No one should have to live in fear of being attacked by armed groups or by a country's police or security forces for that matter. It is deeply unfortunate that the Nigerian state is failing to provide protection for its civilian population or to ensure accountability for the victims of violence. We know from experience that these failures can feed an escalation of violence. So the question for us is, what can we do about it? This commission approaches human rights violations from two angles: how to respond when they occur and how to prevent them in the first place, especially when it comes to situations with a risk of atrocities like mass killings. Prevention must be a priority. The Simon Scott Center at the U.S. Memorial Holocaust Museum recently issued its annual statistical risk assessment for mass killings. The center calculates that Nigeria faces a 7.3% risk of a new mass killing of at least 1,000 people over the next year. That's a 1 in 14 chance, an increase from the past 10 years. So prevention has to be the name of the game here. Now, we've looked at the situation in the Middle Belt before. The last hearing was in 2018. We've talked with many experts on Nigeria and on human rights and reviewed a lot of solid research. We've found widespread consensus that the underlying drivers of conflict in the Middle Belt are complex and multidimensional. Competition for political and economic power, disputes over access to land and resources exacerbated by the impacts of climate change, and impunity for past violence that gives rise to reprisal killings. So I hope that our witnesses today will provide recommendations as to what more the U.S. government can and should be doing to address these underlying drivers. For my part, let me say that I look forward to working with Co-Chair Smith next Congress, assuming that we are both reappointed, on a hearing that examines the links between climate change, environmental degradation, and the prevention of atrocities. One last thought. We know that the language used to describe conflicts is important. As we describe the reality in Nigeria and other conflict-ridden societies, we must not allow ourselves to contribute to polarization by reducing whole populations to the other. I close by asking unanimous consent to include in the record of this hearing the following materials: a statement for the record from Amnesty International USA, a statement for the record from Fatima Madaki, project manager for Advancing Religious Tolerance, Search for Common Ground, a statement for the record from Father Bator, Section 6 recommendations from the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, report titled by any other name, 2020 USURF Nigeria country update, and additional materials as appropriate. Again, I thank the chair for yielding and for doing this hearing, and I would yield back my time.
I want to thank my good friend and colleague, the co-chair, for his comments, and without objection, all of the inclusions for the record will be made a part of the record. I'd like to now yield to Commissioner Jackson Lee, gentlelady from Texas.
Let me thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the co-chairman, Chairman McGovern, for the opportunity of this vital and important hearing. Let me say to my good friend from New Jersey, we have traveled together, we have looked at these issues, we've looked at issues in Africa and really around the world, joined with Ms. McGovern's passion for human rights, and all of us have had the opportunity and privilege to have served with the late Tom Lantos, and we know what his passion is. The Middle Belt conflict is driven by violence that is based upon ethnically and religiously diverse region that adjoins the Nigeria's largely Muslim north and its predominantly Christian south. Mixed in with that is competition for land, for political and economic power, and as I said, disputes over land. So let me begin by saying to the President of Nigeria, to the Nigerian government, to its houses of upper house and lower house, to the governors, this is my message. A land that has such bounty, a land that is rich in resources, that is now almost the largest or the largest nation on the continent of Africa. It is high time for the Nigerian government to take this conflict, these conflicts seriously. I don't know how much longer the world can look to Nigeria for its future, for the young and bright residents and citizens that it has looking for opportunity, and all they see is internal bloodshed, seemingly with a government that has turned its back and its head. Now is the time. Just a few months ago, I stood with Nigerian Americans in my district who, Mr. Chairman, were fighting against human rights abuses by law enforcement officers, not in the context of America, but in the context of just standing on the sidewalk and being abused, or living in your house and being abused. So human rights violations are far and wide. And it is important that we recognize the importance of this hearing, where we discuss the ongoing conflict in Nigeria's Middle Belt, which has been subjected both to ethnic and sectarian conflict that has killed and displaced thousands of innocent persons. I too acknowledge Ambassador Brownback, Ambassador Tan, and many of the other witnesses. And as I give a brief statement, I do want to acknowledge the kidnapping of 300 school-age boys that occurred on Friday, December 11th. How appalling. Because I was in Nigeria, the first members of Congress to go after the taking of the Chibok girls. I went to the north. I saw the parents, the depth of despair. And those girls, many of them have never returned. Never returned. According to the Associated Press, Boko Haram is responsible for the heinous act of aggression, and I'm deeply appalled again by the Nigerian government. We have offered our help, both in terms of, as our chairman has said, Mr. McGovern, in terms of outreach and education and diplomacy, and also in support, peaceful support of the Africa Command. We must come together to not only find these children immediately and return them to their families safe and sound, but also confront these terrorists so the atrocity will never happen again. According to the newly released annual statistical risk assessment and the Holocaust Museum's analysis against genocide, Nigeria as a whole faces a 7.3% risk of experiencing a new mass killing by the end of 2021. I don't think we can take that. A new mass killing, making it the 6th highest in the world. For context, in last year's SRA, Nigeria was ranked 17th with a 5% risk. As co-chair of the Congressional Nigerian Caucus, as well as a member of the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission, I'm glad to be in this hearing, but I'm saddened to be in this hearing. Now we go to the Nigerian Middle Belt is at hand, between sedentary farmers and mobile livestock herders. However, we would be remiss if we did not acknowledge the tendency of these clashes to assume ethno-religious dimensions, given the most of the herders are ethnically Fulani and Muslim, and whereas the majority of the farmers are Christians of various ethnicities. As violence has escalated in recent years, many analysts and advocates have expressed concern over political rhetoric and media portrayals that attribute unified, often nefarious aims to the Fulani and an internally diverse and expansive ethnic group that spans much of Central and West Africa. We can't blame one group over another. This commission, the late Tom Lantos, was in the business of solving problems, acknowledging human rights, and getting a resolution. With this in mind, the U.S. Department of State recently designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern for violations of religious freedom, opening the country up to possible economic sanctions. What were once spontaneous attacks have been premeditated, scorched earth campaigns in which marauders often take villages by surprise at night. Between 2011 and 2016, nearly 2,000 Nigerians were killed annually due to these farmer-herder conflicts. Furthermore, tens of thousands of people have been displaced, with properties, crops, and livestock worth billions of naira being destroyed, devastating local and state economies. There is no doubt that this conflict has a very real, immediate impact on society. And just because it's on the continent of Africa, I am so glad that we at the Tom Lantos Commission are not ignoring it, are not saying it's just on Africa's land, because if it continues, it will devastate the country of Nigeria that has the resources that can help the world and the largest population or growing population in Africa. Moreover, violence in the Middle Belt surged in 2018, expanding into areas that were previously secure, driving thousands more from their homes. Finally, let me just say, as I submit and ask the unanimous consent to submit my entire statement into the record, all of this is exacerbating the agricultural needs of the continent and also around the world. It is time for this issue to be resolved. It is time for the ethnic and sectarian religious conflict to stop being the basis of bloodshed. And yes, Mr. Chairman, co-chairman, it is time for the Nigerian government, the president of Nigeria, having just recently gotten through an election, its parliament, its Congress, to stand up and dig into resolutions of this humanitarian crisis. And with that, I wish for the governors of those states as well to be added in that, to find a peaceful solution that people might live in peace. And I yield back.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jackson-Lee. Commissioner, without objection, your full statement, as you've asked, will be made a part of the record. I'd like to now yield to my good friend and colleague, and also from Texas, Mr. Green.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm honored that you would allow me to be a part of this august body for today's hearing. I'm also honored to say that you and I forged a friendship when we had an opportunity to travel abroad together, a friendship that continues and will continue. I have great respect for you and what you have been doing in the area of human rights abroad. I'd also like to thank the co-chair, McGovern. He has demonstrated time and time again that when injustice is threatening the lives of people, the betterment of people, that he will take a stand, and he will do it boldly. He will do it on the floor of the House of Representatives. He will do it publicly. He will do it before the press. He has demonstrated that he will take a bold stand. I must also thank my dear friend and colleague, Congressman Joaquin Castro from Texas. He has been a great partner in this effort to bring justice to the people of Nigeria. He has made some very powerful statements. I'd like to read just one statement from a press release that he and I have issued today. His statement reads, Congress should immediately pass this resolution, and he's speaking of the resolution that I will say more about in just a moment, H-Res 1216. Congress should immediately pass this resolution and send a powerful message to the people of Nigeria that we stand in solidarity, both here and in the United States and around the world. We must work toward ending police brutality. I ask that the statement be made a part of the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. I also would like to thank the Nigerian community in Houston, Texas, Professor Christian Ulesi, who has been a great partner in helping us assemble the community. I thank the Eco Club Houston, the Emo Daughters Exclusive Houston, the Nidi Ichi Cultural Association Houston, the Nigerian American Multicultural Council Houston, the Nigeria Americans United Political Action Committee. And there are many others that I should be thanking, and I regret that time won't permit me to cover them all. I'm here today, Mr. Chairman, because Black lives matter wherever they may be. I'm here because, paraphrasing one of the witnesses who will give testimony today, who is an attorney, Attorney Udo Judy Ilo, paraphrasing him, the Nigerian country has lost its soul. And I'm here because there is something that we can do. We have a resolution that is pending in the Foreign Affairs Committee. I'm here because we can pass this resolution and say to the world that we will not tolerate the injustices occurring in Nigeria, that we won't be muted, that we will speak up, and that we will stand up. I'm here because while this resolution may not be enough, I'm always reminded of my grandmother's admonition to me. She referred to me as Alexander, and she would remind me that when all you can do is not enough, you must do all that you can. The resolution isn't enough, but it is something that we can do. And I'd like to, at this time, if I may, insert a copy of the resolution for the record as well. I'd also like to submit for the record a copy of an article-styled analysis of CCTV footage from Leaky Toll Gate raises new questions about shooting. And this is an analysis that CNN participated in. I'd like to read one sentence. It reads, the footage, referring to footage from the shooting, corroborates the timings CNN reported for the gunshots fired by the Army. It also shows soldiers approaching protesters and firing shots. There is much more to be said. I ask that it be placed in the record. And finally, what I'd like to do now is simply read some of what the resolution contains, begging that my colleagues who have not signed on to it would do so, and indicating that my request will be made to have this resolution brought to the floor, because not only is time of the essence, lives are at risk. The resolution reads in part, and I would indicate that Mr. Castro is a co-sponsor, as is Ms. Lee of California, as is the many other members, without going through the entire list. But there are members who are sincere and want to be a part of this, and I ask that other members would join us also. It reads in part, whereas on October 20th, 2020, armed security forces reportedly indiscriminately fired live ammunition on a crowd of peaceful protesters that had gathered at the Leaky Toll Gate in Lagos, Nigeria, resulting in numerous deaths and injuries in an event now known as Black Tuesday. It reads further, whereas there has been significant evidence of police violence and abuse by SARS in Nigeria, we must not tolerate, and we must thoroughly, immediately investigate in order to achieve justice for these victims. Whereas all peaceful protesters who were wrongfully arrested for participating or supporting the SARS protest must immediately be released. Whereas there must be an immediate independent investigation of the action that led to the killing of and the use of deadly force against protesters at the Leaky Toll Gate on October 20th, 2020. And I will now go to the be it therefore resolved and bring this to closure. Be it therefore resolved that the House of Representatives condemns the violent crackdown on peaceful protesters by the Nigeria security forces and calls on the government to desist from the persecution, harassment, and infringement of the human rights of any and all Nigerians for exercising their rights to protest. And finally, calls on the African and international human rights community to conduct independent investigations into the use of deadly force against protesters at the Leaky Toll Gate on October 20th, 2020. Mr. Chairman, I ask that the items I call to the attention of the Commission be submitted for the record if there are no objections.
That objection?
And I just simply close with this. The world looks to us for leadership, notwithstanding any circumstances to the contrary. This is our moment to take a stand, to be a part of this mission of mercy to help the people in Nigeria. And one of the things that we can do is to pass this resolution and hopefully send the message to the world that we will take a bold stand for the people of Nigeria and that Black lives matter wherever they may be. I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you very much. And without objection, Mr. Green, your materials will be made a part of the record. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let me, and thank you for, we have traveled together. We've worked on humanitarian issues, including when the Philippines got ravaged by a terrible, terrible storm, and it was great to be with you there and elsewhere. So, and thank you for being here today. Today we do have three very, very distinguished and accomplished leaders as our witnesses from the U.S. Department of State, an Assistant Secretary and two ambassadors at large, as well as a very distinguished private panel that includes a Nigerian bishop who will be connecting with us virtually, and a baroness from the UK who will also be doing likewise. So leading off our first panel is Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom, Sam Brownback. Ambassador Brownback is a former governor, senator, and representative from Kansas. While a member of the Senate and House, he worked actively on a whole range of religious freedom issues, including being a key sponsor of the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998 that was authored by Congressman Frank Wolf. He was, when Darfur was just a horrible area of misery and killing, Sam Brownback made the trip there and brought a great deal of attention to what the Bashir government was doing in the Sudan. We have worked together, he and I, on many issues, including human trafficking. He is a very strong proponent of protecting innocent human life, including unborn children. He is no stranger to the Lantos Commission, and in fact, he testified before the Commission last summer at our hearing on the worldwide persecution of Christians. I want to thank him especially for his leadership in the last few days in the designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern, one of the most egregious violators in the world, where a whole set of sanctions potentially could be levied against the government for its egregious behavior vis-a-vis religious freedom.
Are you worried that part of the demands or part of the agitations of the NSAS protesters is that lawmakers' salaries should be cut?
Well, you are mixing things. Let me just talk to you straight on this. It is not the issue of the salaries of the lawmakers that matters. I feel pain about that because the budget of the National Assembly, out of the 13 trillion that every year they pay, is 128 for this year, for example. That includes salary, everything. If you remove, let's say, that if Nigerians want, because democracy cannot go without the legislature. For me, and I'm speaking for a majority of us, call out the National Assembly, cancel it. That
Cancel
means,
what?
wait, cancel the National Assembly. In that means you have 128 billion naira reduction. Does that make any difference in
No.
Wait, now let me land, please, because this thing is getting too much for people like me that I come out to serve. I come out to serve, not because I want to come here and be rich. No legislator, go and check the record, has come out and gone and become a rich man because he was one time a legislator. Go and check. But wait now, let's listen out, because you brought it.
No, you have ignored my question.
No.
My question is this.
I have been crying out. Government, what is there in our time now is that the cost of government is too much, too high.
Are you saying that your salary has no effect on the economy?
It has no effect on the economy. Go and check it.
Honorable, do you agree with that?
Let me
In 128 billion, in a budget of 13 trillion, sir, and you are talking about senator's salary every time.
Let me explain something, sir. I was a spokesperson of the 8th Assembly. The problem we are faced with Nigerian public, because if you look at the media, even social media, 128 billion versus 469 legislators. This is absolutely untrue, and we require the likes of credible media like channels to educate people. And let me explain why. In the National Assembly, you have 469 true as legislators, senators, and House of Reps. But that's not alone. We have over 2,500 civil servants. We have NILS, Nigeria Institute of Legislative Studies, as an agency under the control of the National Assembly. We have Public Complaints Commission under the National Assembly. We have Sergeant at Arms under the National Assembly. We have 558 that consume 12 billion as annual salary. So it is wrong for people to assume that 469 people take home 128 billion.
How much do you take home every month?
How much do I
take home every month?
It depends.
Let me put it out.
My salary,
to you this
yes,
I just want
my
to
salary about 600 something thousand.
How much do you take home?
It's 670,000 naira.
With all the allowances put together.
No, allowances
you
is
are talking
subject
about
to
this.
access.
I mean,
You cannot sit here and say this is your allowance. My bro, let me give you an example.
You know why I'm
if you go to the
bit,
ministry,
Terry,
can you tell the
please.
ministry that this is how much you, if you are traveling, this is how much you are supposed to get?
Let me hear from the Senator.
Terry, please, you people should help this country in terms of all this, because you know,
if you put out information to
wait now, let me, okay, Terry, we are not arguing.
No, I'm trying to clear something. You're trying to put it to us as media or to help the people.
Because for you now, you come to discuss about NSAS, and because you people are carrying this thing too much in your head, you will say, oh, salaries, you are salary. Let me tell you, for me, I joined this politics in 2003. Go and ask people. My lifestyle or what I have has not really actually changed. Wait now, let me tell you. The cost of governance is the problem. The cost of governance at all level. The cost
excluding the National Assembly.
Including the National Assembly. But you cannot be talking about expensiveness of cost of governance or isolating only the National Assembly. Go and see what the ministers or the ministry is spending in terms of their overhead. My salary is determined by this thing. What do they call it? Revenue and mobilization is 1.something million per day. But that office of the Senate, as a senator, senatorial district is run by, you know, with money. And whatever you spend. So now if I travel, if I buy stationery, if we have committee meetings, you take responsibility for that. The staff of the National Assembly all put together is 128 to take care of an arm of government. I really wish
we had time to break down some of your
to make it a topic one day so that we can come and discuss the matter. I will avail you my opportunity.
The cost of governance is the problem. I disagree, because right now Nigerians are spending 13 trillion on less than 5% of the people, including the National Assembly. You understand? But please, don't be setting us against the public every time on this salary issue.
Nobody sets you against the public.
For me, I have been advocating severally that we should. What has our salary got to do with discussion of
I want us to clarify something.
I mean, you people are not helping matters.
That the public asked. The public is questioning if you take home 30 million naira a month.
The public called for this democracy and elected us in there.
I'd like to first of all say thank you for coming this week.
Please, this thing is getting too much.
Thank you to Senator Inv Stig, the chairman, Senate Committee on Army, and Honorable Abdulrazak Namdaz, Chairman, House of Representatives Committee on Army. I thank you both for finding time to come speak with me today.
Thank you,
on Hard Copy. Well, that's Hard Copy. And let me seize the moment to say that every Nigerian life matters, whether civilian, police, or military. And we're doing ourselves a great disservice by destroying the very infrastructure that is supposed to make our lives easier, or destroying and looting businesses of anyone, especially Nigerians that have supported even the NSAS movement. We should all be open to peace and a way forward. I'd like to say thank you so much for watching, and remember,
we always complain, why are they spending so much money for this, why are they doing this? Yet you want the same people you don't want money to be spent on to provide. Nigeria is a country that we're always complaining about. Virtually everybody. You complain about education, you complain about defense, you complain about security. Why are you giving them so much money? And yet when there is a crisis, it is these same people you run to. The Americans, with Trump in specific terms, President Trump refused point blank and told the NATO members, if you don't spend up to 3% of your GDP on your defense, then the US will not provide security umbrella for Europe. If Russia comes in, let them come in. Here we spend less than 1% of our GDP and we're always shouting, we're always complaining. And there is the saying, made popular by Robert McNamara, one time Secretary of State or Secretary of Defense in the US. If you don't have defense, if you don't have security, you can't develop. If you don't develop, you can't be secured. So the two goes hand in hand. You must secure yourself to be able to develop. Those who bring their money to invest in something must be sure that what I'm putting in here will not go down the drain. There must be security. If you cannot assure them of that, nobody's bringing their money. Even locally, not talk of foreign direct investment. So these are things. There are people who are responsible, but they don't have the capacity or capability to ensure that the borders are secured. And so anybody comes in, they bring anything. So yes, it is a contributing factor. It is not the major, but it's a contributing factor, a major factor in what we are facing. But above all, it is that we don't like solving problem initially, quickly and on time. We procrastinate, and that's what we normally do, generally in Nigeria. Something crops up, instead of resolving it quickly and on time. Remind me, I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow will come tomorrow, procrastinate. Then when the thing blew up, you start complaining. Why is this? They didn't warn me, they didn't warn you. And if somebody advises you, this is what is happening, even if you don't believe the man, go and check, go and inspect and confirm. No, we have issues. So it's so easy. It could be so easy and so simple, but that is if people are ready to do it timely.
Let me first of all congratulate all of us, our committees, for working so hard. I mean the subcommittees of the Appropriations Committee, for working so hard to ensure that we meet the deadline of passing the 2021 budget before we go on Christmas break. We thank God for that. And also thank our Committee on Finance, our Committee on Appropriation for working around the clock, almost in a sort of detention, for them to ensure that everything is put in place. And we thank all the membership of those two committees. Let me also congratulate the House of Representatives, our counterparts, who are doing the same thing that we are doing here. This is because we are able to work together with them. Our committees work very closely with their committees, and we are able to, as a National Assembly, have the budget 2020 passed in this National Assembly today. Let me also commend the executive, like they did last year, on the instructions of Mr. President, that nobody, no minister or head of agency should travel out of this country without defending the budget of his or her ministry. This year, there was no need to add that proviso because COVID is there to stop everyone from wandering about. But they have also done the needful. They have come to defend the budget estimates of their ministries, departments, and agencies, and this is the way to go. For Nigerians, this budget that has been passed in the National Assembly today is to ensure that the economy is supported fully through public expenditure, because the economy of our country depends largely on public expenditure. The budget extension period for implementation of the 2020, which we did last year, is to ensure that the funds that are available for 2020 are not lost. So there will be two budgets running. Funds from 2021 up to 31st March 2021, and then the implementation of the 2021 budget itself to start from January. That is absolute fight against the recession we are suffering from. And with a projected 3% growth in our GDP in the 2021 budget, we believe that the recession Nigeria is in will be over before the end of the first quarter. I want to urge the executive arm of government, first, to ensure that they implement the 2020 budget that will last up to 31st March. There will be no extension after 31st March. Everyone must be on his toes in the ministries, departments, and agencies to ensure that they implement the budget 2020. And for 2021, we have to do everything and anything possible to ensure that we implement the budget like we tried to do in the 2020 budget. I believe that the economy of Nigeria will receive the kind right of boost from the implementation of the two budgets, the extension and the 2021. With this, I want to congratulate everyone once again in the National Assembly. This is one of our contributions to the development of our country, to the development of the economy of Nigeria. Don't look any further to see or find out what the contribution of the National Assembly is to Nigeria. Look at what we are doing. We sacrifice to ensure that our country is fully on the road to ending its recession. Other countries are in deeper recession, and we are likely to come out of recession earlier than most of these countries. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. With this, I want to also say that we have to adjourn for about how many minutes? 30. Okay, we'll adjourn for 30 minutes to enable the Secretariat work on divorce and proceedings, because we have to approve divorce and proceedings for whatever we have done here to have any significance. So after that, we'll then, of course, adjourn until the period that we return. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate.
Hi, welcome to my channel. If this is your first time or first day of coming across my YouTube channel or seeing my face, you are highly welcome. Please willkommen zu meinem Kanal. My name is Linda Chukwuezi. It's coming as Miguel. That red button that says subscribe and you turn on the notification bell so that you'll be able to get information on the.
Bis zum nächsten Video und einen schönen Tag. Tschüss.
Tschüss. Bis mein subscribe to Linda's TV show. What are you waiting for? Click on that red button that says subscribe. You turn on the notification bell so that you'll be getting more updates from me. Leave your comment down below and share this video with your friends, families, and colleagues until we meet again in my next video. Bye bye.